been a historic week in Malaysian politics. A shock election result saw the ruling party kicked out of office after more than 60 years in power. Mahathir Mohamad, a 92-year-old, is the country's new Prime Minister for now. But the leader in waiting is Malaysia's most famous political prisoner, Anwar Ibrahim. I'm Drew Ambrose. On this episode of 101 East, we speak to Anwar Ibrahim and ask, what is Malaysia's political future? The crowds are out in force to see Anwar Ibrahim, who for so long has been behind bars. He was given a royal pardon just hours before and released from custody. The once high-flying politician is finally back in public and back in the political arena.
This is chaos, but it's history in the making and it's absolutely marvellous to watch.
Anwar would still be languishing in jail if it wasn't for a stunning election result in Malaysia. One that saw a seemingly untouchable Prime Minister, Najibs, rejected by voters and now banned from leaving the country. Najib now faces an investigation into his role in a multi-billion-dollar corruption scandal. If found guilty, he could face a potential prison sentence of his own.
Yes, certain heads must fall.
In his 9 years in power, Najib kept a tight grip on the country. His opponents accuse him of controlling the media and the judiciary and brutally targeting critics. Anwar and the new coalition government promise to change all that.
Now there is a new dawn for Malaysia. I must thank the people of Malaysia, regardless of race and religion, who stood by the principles of democracy and freedom. They demand change, and it is our duty now to ensure that this mandate given to Pakatan Harapan would honour this commitment.
The new government is led by Mahathir Mohamad. No stranger to Malaysian politics, he was the country's autocratic Prime Minister for more than 2 decades. He's now back after 15 years in retirement. Mahathir and Anwar have a checkered history. When Mahathir was first Prime Minister, Anwar was his deputy and likely successor. Until they had a bitter falling out. Mahathir called him morally unfit to govern the country. Anwar was sacked and then jailed on sodomy and corruption charges. After 5 years in jail, he made an incredible political recovery, emerging as the leader of a revitalised opposition, only to be jailed again in 2015 for sodomy charges while Najib was Prime Minister. Then, in an extraordinary turnaround, his former foe Mahathir swapped sides and joined forces with Anwar.
We have the same objective. And this objective is very, very important, very serious. It outweighs our previous problem with each other.
United, they achieved what seemed impossible, defeating Najib's government at the polls. Malaysians voted for political change for the first time since independence. Anwar watched the election results unfold from the prison hospital. One of Mahathir's first moves was to secure his freedom. After receiving a full pardon, Anwar left the hospital ward for an audience with the king. Now cleared of all wrongdoing, his political career has been resurrected yet again. Mahathir promises to hand over power to him within 2 years. As Malaysia faces a new dawn, will Anwar finally rise to lead his country? A day after his release, we sat down with Anwar Ibrahim. Thank you very, very much for making the time to speak to 101 East. We really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
And take a seat.
Thank you.
Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim, thank you very much for joining us on 101 East. Welcome home. How does it feel to be a free man?
Great. As I've said, only when one experience incarceration would one really appreciate freedom, or one earlier period, like one colonized and then become free. Here you are completely cut off from the outside world.
You did a deal to work with Dr Mahathir Mohamad, the man who sacked you, jailed you and called you morally unfit to govern. How can you trust him?
But that was 20 years ago. Things have passed and there are some considerations to protect, to save the country from endemic corruption, sliding downwards. He came and sought some sort of reconciliation, make amends. So I, as a Muslim, as a human being, take it in a positive light. فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَ أَخَوَيْكُمْ, you know. It's always that principle that anyone who wants to make peace with you, you should accept in the right spirit. But can we trust? It took time. It was a very painful decision. It was a tough decision. I told him, in fact, in our meetings, I used to tell him, you know, I used to call him doctor, but now I call him Tone. You know, it's very, very tough, very difficult. And it's more difficult for the family too. But we have accepted. And he has also proven his mental. He was consistent, he has called for my release, he facilitated the process of release, which of course people say is just technical, it's true, but then he did facilitate. So I think I have no reason not to trust.
Are you willing to do a deal with anyone to regain power?
The principle is the agenda. If one is committed to reform, one's committed to end the injustice, one's committed to ensure that, to stop cronyism and oppression of the masses, then who am I? It's not an Anwar as a person who should decide or dictate the agenda. It's the people. And it is in the last transformation, as we have seen, is the decision of the people. Not even Mahathir or Anwar or the parties. It's the people then suddenly realize it's time to change from this obsolete, corrupt order to a new independent government. And the wise thing the Malaysians have done is to translate it into votes. They were quiet, people are not certain of their moves. They seem to be quite ordinary, but they were wise when it comes to taking the necessary step.
Malaysia's youth brought this new alliance to power. You're 70 years old, Mahathir is 92, the world's oldest leader. Is there no one else who can lead Malaysia into the future?
Well, there are very many competent youth, young leaders at our disposal. I mentioned to Mahathir, they need to be given the position, exposure, opportunity. In our party, the Justice Party, Keadilan, you find that the majority of the leaders, vice presidents and the key leaders are all young.
But we see the same old faces, including Daim Zainuddin, who you accused of being the most corrupt man in Malaysia. What's new about this government?
Well, he's just appointed on an advisory capacity. That's Mahathir's decision. He has some ideas on economic management. He has proven himself. But I have a caution publicly. I said, look, you can give ideas, but be mindful of the scandals and the corruption of the past.
But a lot of these voices are from the past, it's fair to say. They aren't new voices.
No, but I've said it publicly because it's not easy for other leaders to say. I said, I take it, this Mahathir's decision, okay, we concede, but we must remind Daim and the leadership that his ideas has got to be scrutinized carefully to make sure that he does not repeat the excesses of the past.
Former Prime Minister Najib Razak's private residence has been raided. You have accused his government of financial corruption, of weakening the constitution, of corrupting the judiciary. Are Najib's crimes forgivable?
Well, let the due process take its place. I said his crime in terms of unjust incarceration and using all the institutions against me, that I am not going to pursue.
But are you encouraged to see what is happening in recent days with the raids?
Yeah, but in terms of the investigations and a possible preferring of charge by the Attorney General, then he has to accept. And people ask me, do you need to do it at the wee hours in the morning? I said, I would do differently, but this the practice in this country. And I think we need to adjust a bit.
You speak of a new dawn in Malaysia that's racially inclusive. However, the top 5 positions in your new government are dominated by one race. Do you think this is the right start?
Well, the majority race is still the Malays, the Bumiputra, exceed 60%. But the portfolio, the key portfolio is given to a Chinese, the finance minister. But I think the important point here is to show that these leaders are Malaysians. Finance minister who's Chinese, but he's a Malaysian, who think like a Malaysian, who is there to protect the interests of the Malaysian economy and the Malaysian people, regardless of race.
Are you a Malay first or a Malaysian first?
You see, there is no, to me, there's no contradiction. If you ask me, am I a Muslim first or Malaysian first? A Malay first. I'm a Malay, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Malaysian. I am an Asian. I am an internationalist at that. I'm a practicing Muslims. I still consider Shakespeare as a genius, international genius. I associate myself largely to Shakespeare's works and thinking. It does not erode my belief, nor my culture, nor my state or nation.
Is there a clear plan of succession between you and Dr Mahathir?
No, people mention 1 year, some say 1.5, some say 2. But in my discussion with him, he does not insist on this sort of a clear time frame. And I wanted him to be just comfortable. I just said, you just, manage the affairs of this nation. I need time, I need to break a while, to be with the family, particularly when Aziza is now the Deputy Prime Minister. And then I need to then fulfill my speaking engagements. And in the Muslim world also need to hear the voice of reason on democratic transition and democratic accountability.
But given the past, shouldn't you have a clear arrangement between both of you?
I'm not insisting, and he is not even pursuing these issues. I just had a long meeting, 2 long meetings in a week, which is of course something which is very encouraging. And that matter does not crop up. I'm free to express my views. He gave me a good access to meet him. And but of course I said to him, probably after Ramadan I've got to do some travel to, fellowship and etc. Short spend outside, overseas.
Speaking of that, you've spent your life fighting for your political career and to have a say in running this country. This is a rare opportunity to reform. There's a lot of hard work to be done. Yet you say you don't want a cabinet position. You want to go on a world speaking tour. Why don't you want to have a significant role from the outset?
See, the entire cabinet is composed of those, vast majority, 80% of those committed to the reform agenda since 1998. And I think they would do well immensely in influencing the course and chart for the future of this nation. Dr Mahathir has repeatedly said that he needs to undertake these measures. And he has done. Anti-corruption agencies to be independent. He has complained about the election commission that need to be independent and fair. And essentially that's what we want. Now, why don't I want to participate in the cabinet? I want him to have a free hand. I don't need to feel that there is someone just looking across the shoulder, look at in every move. It doesn't make the government seen to be or perceived to be stable. At least when I part, then people know that, look, Anwar is just waiting for his turn. He's not clamoring for the post now.
So at the moment you will be on a presidential council, an advisory role. What will you actually do in the current administration?
I am technically the, I don't know what the technical term, they joke because there is Ketua Umum, I mean the general leader, then chairman, Mahathir, then president, Aziza, and so on. They joke it is like a Murshidul Am of the Ikhwan. No, it is not. It is just a person in the midst of this leadership council. But even to this meeting, I didn't attend to this meeting. I had a session with Mahathir, and I said they can proceed with the meeting.
Did your coalition alliance win the election, or did Najib's government lose it?
I think it's a combination of both. I think to be fair, our friends have worked hard from the 2008 elections in particular, where the coalition is formed. And in 2013, we won the majority vote. I mean, that's significant in a country with a fraudulent electoral process and with the entire system stacked against you. And now, I think with the Mahathir adding into it, I think it is a combination. But then the line has been always been consistently the opposition towards Najib.
Your wife is Deputy Prime Minister, your daughter is an MP, you are set to become the next Prime Minister. Is this a family business, or are you building your own political family dynasty?
Well, Aziza is president of the party, so she's in her own right. And my daughter has informed the party that she does not intend to join the cabinet, although she's the most senior, other than the deputy president, who is the chief minister of a state. She's the most senior position in the party, but she has declined, which I think speaks well of the relationship. And naturally, once I assume the premiership, Aziza will then resign. And that's also the understanding known. Although they continue to use this campaign, say, can you imagine the Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, husband-wife team? Which is of course a blatant lie, because we have made it clear, once I assume the premiership, Aziza will resign.
Your wife said she's keeping the seat warm for you. Now she is Deputy Prime Minister. Is she still a proxy for you in that position? Is it appropriate that the second highest position in the country is taken up by a proxy?
Firstly, she's president of the party, and she led the party in my absence, incarceration, which means she had to handle everything, decisions taken on her own, because she could meet me rarely, and even then, surrounded by guards, she's not able to discuss anything substantive, which means, therefore, she has done it. Now, whether one is a proxy or not, is a matter of sharing the ideals. I don't see that as a problem at all. Yes, she said she would certainly want to share the views and ideals of the party and Anwar, except if I say go and get yourself some money or some contracts. If I say, look, our ideas is to make sure that you work to ensure that the focus is on the welfare of the masses, not the cronies, not the clique elite around the leadership, to make sure that we end corruption, then it's fine with me. So she is, in that sense, a proxy. In fact, anyone can be a proxy to protect and implement these ideals.
My last question is, you've spent the last several months in hospital. Are you fit and able to be Prime Minister of this country?
I had to undergo a surgery, shoulder surgery. Most leaders have undergone some surgeries or other. I had a shoulder surgery done. And my condition was, because they had to do it, and I refused. I said, I don't trust the system. And they said, because there was an offer from Turkey, offer from Georgetown University Hospital, because that's where I taught in the past, to provide me all the amenities free. I said to the government, look, I'm given this. Why should I then surrender my life to you guys? Then word came from Prime Minister's office that no, is purely a hospital and the affair of the specialists. And I said, I will not allow, the understanding is that they will not allow me to be discharged back to the hospital, with the prison, with such atrocious living conditions, until I'm fully recovered.
Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim, thank you for your time.
Pleasure.